Hi everybody, I'm Bill Kopp. My handle is Hubcap, and today I'd like to introduce you to Brick. It's my ZJ that I've built. It's not the Brick, it's just Brick. There's a big long story behind that. Maybe I'll tell you that another time. But let's get started. Brick is a 1998 ZJ 5.9 Limited. I've had it for a long time. Done things a little bit at a time over that period. Everything's been rebuilt or reconditioned except for the engine and transmission. It's got 245,000 miles on it. Runs like a top. Doesn't use any oil. Transmission shifts nice. I service it regularly, and it's still going strong. Probably on the future to-do list is rebuilding the engine and transmission. Probably do some modifications there, but here's where we're at so far. It's got about a 4.5-inch lift on it. You can see I've got the JKS ACOS spacers. I have them front and rear. They don't make them for the rear. There is a company that makes an adapter that you can make them work, but I made them work myself. It's got a Clayton triangulated long arm suspension on it. Looks pretty stock still. I like the looks of the stock front bumper. Just my personal preference. You can see I have a winch on it. I might get some comments about my Badland winch, but there's a story behind that. I actually had this for my old Woods Jeep that I don't have anymore, and I used it on my tractor. I made a receiver hitch setup for it so that I can take it off the front and put it on the rear. I have a quick disconnect setup that I can plug the winch into the battery. I also have a similar connector mounted in the rear, so whenever I want to winch from the rear, I can do that. It's right there behind my air hose. I also have about a 25-foot set of jumper cables that I can connect into these connectors and either jump start myself or jump start somebody else. Let's keep going under the hood. I wanted to have onboard air, but you know, there isn't a whole lot of space underneath the hood of these things. And so what I did was I got a Trailhead Off-Road cowl intake air cleaner system and put on it, and mounted my twin Viair air compressors where the stock airbox used to be. Another interesting thing that I did, my rock sliders, the inner tubing is actually plumbed. I welded fittings in, and they're reserve air tanks. And so I can run an impact wrench or any number of things with it. Something else I built was a ability to air up and air down or run an impact wrench off of the system. I have a quick disconnect at all four corners of the Jeep. There's that one. There's that one. And finally this one. And what I do is under my seat, I store my whip hoses, and I can actually hook these onto each corner, go to each tire, and once I get it hooked up, I can push this valve here. Down is air down, middle position is off, and pull up and I can air up. I don't have the system aired up right now. It's just sitting there dormant. Maybe in another video I'll show you how it works. But I can literally air down from 32 psi to about 18 psi and then turn around and air back up in less than 5 minutes. Kind of a slick little thing. I like to build stuff like that. The nice thing about these little whip hoses is they're not dragging all over the ground and they're easy to stow. I do have a 25-foot coily hose that I can use to run an impact or to get a little more length. Excuse my fluids laying there. Back here, I have Pelican cases and my toolkit. I added a couple of eye bolts back in here so that I can tie it down so that if anything bad happens, these things aren't flying around to come and get me. This one has my jack, impact, and some other air stuff in it. This one has all my recovery gear, straps and clamps and all the things that go with that. This one is miscellaneous stuff, like I have a tarp in there and some things that are handy to have out in the woods. And then I just have a little toolkit right here. My winch cable control is stored there, as well as my jumper cables. I wanted to try and keep the tire inside the vehicle instead of hanging out the back or on the roof. And a 33 1250 is about all the bigger you can get in there. If I ever go to a bigger tire size, I'm going to have to mount it outside. But for right now, this will work. I've got recovery points mounted, receiver hitch on the back. They're solid and tied into the frame. My muffler is a Super Trap, and a lot of people think of it as a motorcycle muffler, but it's actually a tunable exhaust. It works really well, sounds really good. I probably am going to change it though, not for performance reasons, but as you know, ZJs, one of their weak points are approach and departure angles, and I get into enough hairy stuff nowadays that I'm banging my exhaust off the ground or off a rock whenever I come off of it. So I do want to change that. Got Notch Customs flares on it. They're a project to do, but I like how they turned out. I gained a lot of wheel well clearance. I can tuck up pretty good with these 33 1250s. I don't think I want to go any bigger. This build was a low center of gravity build. That was my goal with it. A lot of places where I run are very narrow and off camber, and so I needed to bear that in mind when I build it. I have LED pod lights in place of the regular fog lights. Gives me a little more lighting. And as you ZJ guys know, the lights aren't the best in these things. I do have a relay setup where I'm pulling direct battery voltage into the headlights instead of wiring it through the little tiny wires that were supplied by Chrysler. Under the hood, something different that I did. Instead of the crappy little single bulb under hood light, I added these LED lights. They are still hooked to the mercury switch or the closing switch, so that whenever you close the hood down, they turn off, and then they turn on whenever you raise the hood. Again, the engine's still stock. I have put time and chain, some front end stuff, regasketed things, new valve cover gaskets, and all that kind of stuff. But it works great for now. I do have 456 gears with ARB air lockers on them. This is my regulator for the lockers. Like I said, I did put a high pinion Dana 30 in it, and I have the WJ knuckle conversion on it. I stuck with WJ steering components, and that way if anything happened out in the trail or if I was away from home, I could go to any parts store and pick up parts. You can see my front recovery points. They are actually tied into the reinforced front bumper setup that I made that is behind the plastic bumper fascia. And I have a Kevin's Off-Road radiator support, and it's tied into that as well. We can go inside here once. I've got Corbeau Baja XRS seats in it. The factory ZJ seats are very comfortable. The one problem with them is they don't hold you in place very well. So if you get into an off-camber situation, you're slipping and sliding around, and these babies hold you in place really nicely. In here, nothing super fancy. I have Trailhead Off-Road grab handles that I put in there. Couple little Milwaukee lights that I mounted on the A-pillars. You never know. I've been in situations where I got into something at night and needed to be able to see. These are rechargeable and they last a long time. I actually have extra batteries that I keep charged up for it, and that helps to keep me where I can see. I just have an old Pioneer tuner in it. This is like back in 1999 I bought it, and it was in a Dodge truck that I had, and it's the same configuration as what the ZJs have, and so whenever I started building this, I stuck that in there. The rest of the stereo is standard 5.9. It's got the sound bar in the back and the amplifier, and all that stuff is still stock. I do have a Sirius player in it. Something that is a little different is many of you know that the VIC on these things are a problem. and I soldered the joints in it a couple times, but whenever I started putting different accessories on it, I need somewhere to put switches. And so I thought, well, you know, I really don't pay attention to that Vic anyway. And so I took it out, gutted it, and reconfigured things so that I could run my air compressor, air lockers, and then this one actually runs my knuckle pod lights. I didn't show you that when I was underneath, but we'll get back to that maybe. Got Quadratec floor mats all the way around. These things work really nice. They keep the mud and debris contained, and so whenever you get done wheeling, you can just take them out and clean them off. Got a little phone mount there. It's a inductive pickup, so I don't have to have a cord that I have to plug in and out of my phone. I just snap it in place and I'm good to go. Underneath, I have a 242 transfer case. I thought it might be better if I came underneath. Got a 242 transfer case with an Adams rear drive shaft in it. I have a Ironman Fab 4x4 differential skid in the rear. These are a really good rear end. A lot of people look down upon them. They do not have a lot of aftermarket support, but it's actually a very strong rear end. But the one weak point is the aluminum center section, and this eliminates that problem. I've got a Rusty's skid plate on it for the transfer case, and I modified it to give me more ground clearance. I was actually able to cut it apart and re-weld it and gain some ground clearance. It hangs down awful low for what I wanted to do. I've got it tied into my frame stiffeners from the Clayton long arm setup. Another reason I ran the Super Trap exhaust is because, you know, as you know, whenever you start putting a long arm suspension on these things, the exhaust is something that gets in the way. Well, I was able to snake everything around and accomplish that with the Super Trap in the back. But again, I think I'm going to change that because of my departure in the back. Something that's a little hard to see, maybe, but to keep my center of gravity low and able to run 33-inch tires without raising it way up in the air, I actually cut about an inch out of the torque boxes and moved them back and tapered where the rocker panels come into them so that I could turn the wheels without rubbing a bunch of stuff. Here we go again, up front. Again, WJ steering, stock joints, plenty strong for what I want to do. I have my track bar set up right here. I did move the front end forward about an inch so that I could gain a little more clearance. The one thing that created was my track bar, because it's so low, my track bar was hitting on my differential, so I had to get a different track bar bracket that moved it forward on the frame side. Got Ironman Fab 4x4 steering box brace on it. I also have JKS front and rear bump stop extensions. That way I can control my up travel, keep the tires out of the fenders. These are my knuckle pod lights. These help a lot. The one nice thing is whenever you're off-roading, they're attached to the knuckle, and whenever you turn, the lights turn. So you can see around corners, see things that your headlights can't pick up because they always point straight. Another thing I did to gain tire clearance was I moved my carbon canister in next to the frame. You know, it's usually out here. Well, now it's way in there. It's pretty easy modification to make. You just need to build a template, drill some holes, and you're good to go. Some little things that I did, you know, power steering can get hot. You can kind of see it behind the grill. I actually modified a WJ power steering cooler and mounted in there. Another thing I missed whenever I was looking at the battery, I've got a Mountain Vista battery tray. Again, as you ZJ guys know, the plastic battery tray can break, and you don't want your battery flopping around. So anyway, this is brick, and I hope you like it. I'll probably take some more